what's up guys, and welcome to our complete finale of our Canucks GM mode, where we do a recap on all the seasons after I ended the series, so from 2030-31 to 2040-41, and you guys get to tell if we win, how much cups we win by the end of it, presents, trophies, everything like that, and how much point-wise players retired with, how much goals they retired with, all that sort of cool stuff. So yeah, I flip on over to basically my narrative, so hopefully you guys like this. During the 29-30 offseason, Olli Juho-Levi requests a trade from the Canucks after his one-game stretch in the playoffs. This resulted in him being dealt to the rival Edmonton Oilers alongside a 2031 first-round pick in exchange for 26-year-old medium-weight 89 overall Jeremy Gogol. To start the 30-31 season, goaltender Chad Olson has grown to an 88 overall to compete with longtime Canuck Alexis Gravel for starting role. With the trade of Olli Juho-Levi, Mikhail Albolin and Vince Mikulski became alternates to captain Bo Horvat. Prospect defenseman Marcus Albolin, who was acquired from Buffalo from Matthias Lundberg, made opening right roster. By January 1st, Chad Olson makes a huge impression in net, going 18-2-2 with a minuscule 1.89 goals against average and a .933 save percentage. Canucks cruise through the month of February, going 11-1. The team flies through the entire regular season, finishing with a 56-16-10 record. The home record was 37-4, while the road one was 26-9-6. Regular season leaders was none other than Mikhail Albolin, who mustered up 76 points and 55 assists for the team lead in both those categories. As for goals, the offensive goal-scoring ability of offensive defenseman Ruslan Nazarov was on full display as he finished with a career-best 32 goals. As for goalie stats, phenom Chad Olson had a 29-6-4 record, along with a 2.14 goals against average and a .924 save percentage, while veteran goaltender Alexis Gravel went 27-10-3 with a 2.36 goals against average and a .918 save percentage. This season saw Canucks win their third straight President's Trophy. Playoffs rolled around for the first round, and they had to take on former players Troy Stecher and Thatcher Demko with the Arizona Coyotes. Fortunately, they were able to get past them with ease in 5 games. Round 2 brought another familiar face in the likeness of Shea Theodore and the San Jose Sharks, which were a bit more of a contest but ultimately ended in a 7-game series win. Back to the conference finals again for the Vancouver Canucks, but this time more former players, including Kevin Fiala, Guillaume Brisebois, and the Colorado Avalanche. Despite Colorado coming into the series hot, the Canucks used their experience to max, sweeping them in 4 games and advancing to the 3rd Stanley Cup Finals appearance. This time they had to take on a team they never faced before, being the Pittsburgh Penguins post-Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Murray era. Not being in the finals before gave the Canucks a huge advantage as they swept the young Penguins in 4 games to win their 3rd cup in franchise history. The final awards rolled out at 10 this season, seeing goaltenders Chad Olson and Alexis Gravel take home the William M. Jennings for the lowest combined goals against average. Captain Bo Horvat took home yet another Selke trophy. To complement the cup and Jennings, Olsen took home the Conn Smythe as playoff MVP, going 16-3, posting a 1.13 goals against average and a .960 save percentage. Unfortunately, after a 3rd Stanley Cup and an 8th Selke trophy, longtime captain of the Vancouver Canucks Bo Horvat decides to retire after 17 seasons. His final stats as a Canuck include 1,366 games played, 364 goals, 668 assists for 1,041 points. He went a +98 during those 17 seasons he played, and he also put up a 965 penalty minutes. After a superb season as starter, goaltender Chad Olson grew to an 89 overall. With the retirement to long-term captain, Bo Horvat at the end of last season, Canucks were more than happy to promote their former third overall pick in 2020, Mikhail Albling, to captain. In addition to this, they promoted Nolan Patrick to the second alternate captain behind Vince Mikulski. To end the season, the Canucks finished with a 47-31-4 record. Chad Olsen had a bit of a hangover from the last season during the year, finishing with a 29-24-2 record in a high 2.59 goals against average and a low .908 save percentage. However, he did put up 5 shutouts. Luckily for the Canucks, their backup goaltender Alexis Gravel played better than the youngster, going 18-7-1 with a 2.32 goals against average and a .922 save percentage, and as well 3 shutouts. The point leader was once again Mikhail Albling, who led the way with 65 points. While assists-wise, it was a tie between Mikhail Albling and offensive defenseman Ty Smith. Goal leader was for back-to-back seasons was Ruslan Nazarov, who led the way with 31 goals, just a little less than last season where he finished with 32. The playoffs rolled around again for the Canucks, and they had to see former top D-man Olli Juolevi in the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton stood no chance against these postseason veterans as the Canucks swept them easily in 4 games to advance to round number 2. Round 2 saw the Sharks once again in the playoffs, just like the previous year. The Canucks had an easier time with them this year as they beat them in 6 games in comparison to last year's 7-game series. Yet another conference finals appearance for the Canucks. This has been the 7th time already that they have done that in this entire franchise mode. This time they had to face the Minnesota Wild, who unfortunately mustered up enough to sweep the Canucks and make the veterans ponder what they did wrong. So Vancouver's out in 4 games in the conference finals this year. Minnesota would advance to the Cup finals, where they would lose to last year's Eastern Conference champions, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Luckily, during the offseason, the Canucks didn't lose a single man to retirement. However, former players Kevin Fiala with the Colorado Avalanche, Pavel Zacha with the Dallas Stars, Ruby Hintz with the Detroit Red Wings, Cole Castles with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Austin Skomborn with the Ottawa Senators retired from the game of hockey. After last year's third-round exit, the Vancouver Canucks were determined to get back to the Cup finals. They finished the season with a solid record, going 47-24-11. The point and assist leaders for the first time wasn't really Mikhail Albling, but it was Nolan Patrick, who put up 53 assists and 65 points. The goal leader once again was defenseman Ruslan Nazarov, who had a considerable drop in goals from last year as he buried 23 goals home for the team lead. Goaltender Chad Olsen had a big answer to last year's disappointment as he went 30-14-6 during the regular season with a 1.99 goals against average and a .932 save percentage. Also, he put up a career-high 10 shutouts. Backup Alexis Gravel played just as good, going 18-7-1 with a 2.12 goals against average and a .928 save percentage. He also put together 3 shutouts to end the year. Now on to the playoffs. The Canucks had to face Olli Juolevi and the Oilers once again. Despite last year sweeping them, the Canucks struggled to get that extra win and fell in 7 games in round number 1. This was the first time they've been eliminated in that round since 2027-28, which oddly enough was the same year the Edmonton Oilers won the Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup Finals saw 2 new teams battle it out as the Atlantic Division Tampa Bay Lightning took on the Central Division Winnipeg Jets. Tampa Bay would prevail and win their first Stanley Cup since 2003-04. Only hardware the Canucks took home that year was the William M. Jennings, which was awarded for the second time in 3 seasons to Chad Olsen and Alexis Gravel. After even more of a disappointing season, blue liner Timothy Liljegren decided it was time to hang up the skates after 14 seasons. His final career stats include 1,058 games played, 39 goals, 418 assists for 457 career points. He was also a +69. He ended as a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. Former starting goaltender Andrei Vasilevsky also retired, going 292, 346, and 24 in his career with 46 shutouts. A lot of those wins and losses and shutouts coming with the Vancouver Canucks. During the offseason, the Canucks only made one addition, adding free agent 21-year-old with top 6 potential, Sean Manning, who was already an 82, and he was a former third-round pick of the Anaheim Ducks back in 2031. 2033-34 season recap. To start off the 33-34 season, youngster and two-time William M. Jennings Award winner Chad Olson battles with injuries. However, the Canucks managed to finish the year with an okay regular season, going 45-32-5. The point and assist leader was back to being the captain, Mikhail Alboin, who put up 67 more points and 45 assists. While for the fourth straight season, Ruslan Nazarov led the way, putting up 27 goals. Due to age, center Samuel Bitton has dropped off in overall and has become a healthy scratch for most of the season and playoffs. Round 1 saw rivals clash as the Canucks took on the San Jose Sharks. They'd get the best of them, as always, winning the series in 5 games. Round 2 came around and so did the Edmonton Oilers, who eliminated the Canucks in the previous season. Olli Juolevi and the Oilers didn't prove to be much of a threat this season, though once again as the Canucks would prevail in 6 games. Round 3 was a surprise for Vancouver as they battled Nashville like they had in 2026-27. Instead of losing that series, though, they fought hard and won in 7 games to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals for the second time in 4 seasons. This time they had to play a young, superb 94 overall winger named Stephen Clancy. Him and his Blue Jackets were looking to get their first Stanley Cup under their belt, but to do so they'd have to go through the veteran presence in the Vancouver Canucks. However, the young ones prevailed and the Columbus Blue Jackets took away a 4th Stanley Cup by winning the series in 6 games. The offseason came quick, luckily, but the Canucks had no retirements in their organization. As for former players, there was a couple from the early years of the GM series, including Shea Theodore of the San Jose Sharks, Guillaume Brisebois of the Colorado Avalanche, Jakub Vrana of the Calgary Flames. Also, long-term goaltender from the Utica Comets, Christian Heljenko, retired as a free agent. Another notable retirement is Jamie Hoffman, and some of you may be like, who the heck is Jamie Hoffman? Well, he was a 4th overall pick in 2020, just behind Mikhail Alboin. Turns out this guy was a medium elite and Alboin was a low elite, so at the time I thought, oh, this Hoffman guy is going to be way better than Alboin is, but it turns out Hoffman finishes his career off of 415 games played, 47 goals, 81 assists for 128 points, which is nowhere near close to what Mikhail Alboin will finish his career with. You guys will find out his numbers once he retires. 2034-35 season recap. Samuel Bitton rejects a contract renewal with the Canucks, sending him to free agency where he would sign a 1-year deal worth $2.545 million with the New York Islanders. Also, defenseman Marcus Alboin gets upset with his ice time, so he leaves the organization as well to sign with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Goaltender Chad Olson requests a trade from the Canucks after being accidentally scratched 1 game. GM Snipe and Score does not listen to his request. Former player Sam Bitton tears it up in his first 17 games with the New York Islanders, putting up 18 points during that span. Young up-and-coming enforcer Kurt Boyce makes the team and finishes off his rookie season with 5 goals, 15 assists for 20 points. As well, he racks up 97 penalty minutes and is a +9. Canucks finished the season as the 3rd best team, going 52, 26, and 4. The point and goal leader at the end of the season was Mikhail Alboin, who put up 27 goals, 67 points. Assist leader was great puck-moving defenseman Vince Mikulski, who also had 45 helpers. Goaltender Chad Olson had a great season, finishing 33, 15, and 2 with a 2.09 goals against average and a .929 save percentage with 4 shutouts, while backup Alexis Gravel went 19, 11, and 1 with a 2.44 goals against average and a .919 save percentage with 3 shutouts. During the year, Mikhail Alboin plays his 1000th game in the NHL and records his 800th point. After last year's finals loss, the Canucks were determined to get back there again. To do so, they'd have to take on the LA Kings for one of the only times in the first round. This time, the Canucks took them out in 6 games. Round 2 brought another familiar face, as always, in the San Jose Sharks, which was a tough series. Canucks found themselves in an early hole, dropping the first 3 games. The coach decides in Game 4 to reunite the old veterans on the first line, putting Chris Wyman alongside Nolan Patrick and Mikhail Alboin. This gave the Canucks 4 straight wins to eliminate the Sharks in 7 and advance to the conference finals. The conference finals brought another team from California, that one being the Anaheim Ducks. As for them, they didn't cause as much pain as the Sharks did, and the Canucks ducked them in 6 games. Back to the Stanley Cup Finals for a second year in a row for these veterans. This time it brought on the Metropolitan Division team in the Philadelphia Flyers. The Philadelphia Flyers had longtime Canuck Marcus Naslund's kid as the top-line center at a 90 overall. He and the other Flyers didn't give much of a chance to the old veterans, and once again the Canucks saw a cup loss in 6 games. Due to age, former 28th overall pick Chris Wyman decides to end his career with 1,224 games played, 113 goals, 431 assists, for 544 points. Former player Olli Juolevi retires as a member of the Oilers, as well former 30th overall pick in 2017 Owen Tippett retires. Yuka Blomdell parts ways due to ice time. In response to losing Blomdell, the Canucks bring in RFA right winger Olli Lehtinen from the Sharks and surrender their second round pick for the upcoming season. 2035-36 season recap. Enforcer Kurt Boyce battles with injuries throughout the entire season, missing a total of 44 games. The Canucks finished the season with another President's Trophy as they went 52, 22, and 8 during the regular season. Leader in points and assists this year was a defenseman being second-round steal from 2022, Vince Mikulski, who put up a career best at the time 76 points with 54 assists. Leader in goals was back to being defenseman Ruslan Nazarov, who put up another 27-goal season to add to his multiple 25-plus goal years. Round 1 of the playoffs was once again the San Jose Sharks, who were wanting redemption from last year's disappointment of losing a series that they were up 3-0 in. Sharks once again stormed out to an early series lead, going up 3-1, but once again they couldn't seal the deal as the Canucks would come back and win in 7 games. Former second-round pick of the Sharks, Corey Raffel, was credited with the series clinching goal. Round 2 saw the return of the Edmonton Oilers, this time without Olli Juolevi. Once again, wasn't much of a contest for the Canucks as they took them out in 6 games and advancing to the conference finals for the 3rd time in 3 seasons. Round 3 brought on the Avalanche, who were a rival of the Canucks back in the early 2000s, but not as much in the last 20 seasons though. Forward Sean Manning would go on a tear in game number 3, putting up a 4-goal game. Canucks would ultimately sweep them, advancing to their 3rd straight Stanley Cup Finals appearance. The Stanley Cup Finals saw a rematch of the previous years as the Canucks battled the Flyers. This time the Canucks had a home ice advantage, and in game 1 Sean Manning would further prove his goal scoring ability as he put up his 2nd hat-trick of the postseason. Unfortunately, the series would go into 7 games and in overtime as well, Vancouver fans getting anxious as captain Mikael Abling hit the post, nearly winning the Canucks the cup. The Canucks dominated for most of the overtime, but then the Flyers get a lucky break and a simple wrister fools Olsen, and the Philadelphia Flyers repeat as Stanley Cup champions, and Vancouver suffers its 3rd straight Stanley Cup Finals loss to part their all-time Stanley Cup Finals record at 3-3, while not including the series against the Boston Bruins in 2011. Defenseman Ty Smith retires at the end of the offseason, with a career stats being 1,114 games played, 145 goals, 304 assists for 449 points. 327 of those points came with the Canucks and the rest with the Calgary Flames, who he was drafted by originally. Former first-liner Jake Virtanen also hangs up the skates, as well as 2-time Stanley Cup winning goaltender with the Canucks and mentor to Alexis Gravel, Thatcher Demko retires with the Arizona Coyotes. His final career numbers include 897 games played, 380 wins, 333 losses, 23 shootout/overtime losses. He also put up 62 shutouts during that span. Jim Saint-Piscore would hire him as the goaltending coach for the upcoming season. Center Ryan Bertram leaves for Colorado as he signs a 1-year, $2.6 million contract with them. As an answer to Bertram leaving the Canucks decide to sign some extras in replacement as they signed center Kenny Kostopoulos and defenseman Benjamin Woodworth. 2036-37 season recap. Age starts to play a major factor for the Canucks as Mikael Abling drops to an 81 overall. Nolan Patrick also drops to an 82, Ruslan Nazarov drops to an 87, and goaltender Alexis Gravel drops to an 86. Despite the age problems, the Canucks dominate in January, going 11-3-1. They'd keep that up all season, finishing first in the Western Conference with a 49-26-7 record. This time the leader in points also led the way in goals and assists, that leader being Vince Mikulski, who put up 25 goals, 40 assists for 65 points. Canucks would move on to the playoffs and face Alberta's own Calgary Flames. This year looked promising during their season, but at the age of the Canucks, it finally showed in the playoffs as the young Flames beat them in a 5-game series. Eventually, the Cup champions would end up being the Tampa Bay Lightning. Despite age and players dropping in overall, no one retired, which means there was still a chance to get one more Stanley Cup before they retired. During the offseason, depth player Leonard Stortini decides to leave the team, and he remains an unsigned free agent, where he would remain until he retired. 2037-38 season recap. Canucks struggled to get wins, but finished just above 500 with a 43-36-3 record, and barely make the playoffs. Center Mikhail Albling's potential drops from a bottom 6 forward to an AHL top 6 forward. The point and assist leader at the end of the season was once again given to Vince Michalski, who led the way with 53 assists and 74 points, proving once again that he was the leader on this team. Goal leader at the end of the season was another defenseman who always seemed to score, Ruslan Nazarov, popping home another 25 goals like it's an easy thing to do. Round 1 brought on the Edmonton Oilers, who always didn't prove to be much of a contest to the Canucks, and the Canucks would easily move on to round 2 as they swept them in 4 games. Round 2 saw the Minnesota Wild for only the second time ever. Last time they battled them was in the conference finals when Minnesota won and moved on to the Stanley Cup Finals. Well, this time the Canucks wanted it a bit more and took out the Wild in 6 games to move on to the conference finals again. Round 3 brought a team they had faced many times in the conference finals back in the early years of this GM series. That team was the Dallas Stars. Canucks didn't see much of a threat in them as well, winning in 6 games to advance back to the Cup Finals after last year's Round 1 letdown. For the 4th time in 5 years, the Canucks were in the Cup Finals. They'd take on the Buffalo Sabres. Game 1, the Canucks were down by only a goal late in the 3rd, and a hard-hitting defenseman, Tony Taze, came through in the clutch, tying the game up with $1:23 left on the clock. The Canucks would then steal the game in overtime and take a 1-0 series lead. Game 2, Taze was not done, as the game was tied late in the 3rd, and then boom, with 23 clicks left in the 3rd period, Tony Taze steps up and delivers the game-winning goal to give the Canucks a 2-0 series lead. Eventually the series would go to 5 games and the Canucks would win their 4th Stanley Cup in franchise history. To go with the Cup, though, came with a big load of bad off-season news. The retirements were announced and the Canucks lost 4 players who were there for a long time. First, they lost captain Mikhail Alblin, who finished his career with 1,262 games played, 316 goals, 674 assists for 990 points. He was very close to ending his career off with 1,000 points. Next, they lost their 2017 first overall pick, Nolan Patrick, who finished with the most games played as a Canuck, as he finished with 1,558 games. Also to add to that, he put up 295 goals, 691 assists for 986 points. A bit of a surprise to the GM, as defenseman Ruslan Nazarov decided he had enough as well. During his career, he put up 1,225 games played, and he also mustered up the most goals by a Canucks defenseman with 373. Adding to that, he put up 186 assists for 559 points. Finally, they also lost former 9th overall pick in 2018, Alexis Gravel. He finished his career with 686 games played, 346 wins, 183 losses, and 16 extra frame losses. And at the time, the franchise high he had also was 65 shutouts, which would then be later broken by Chad Olsen. In addition to all their off-season losses, the Canucks had freed up a lot of extra cap space to spend in free agency, as they signed 83 overall backup Bremberg to replace Alexis Gravel. They also signed top-line center 87 overall Montador to replace Alblin and Patrick, and they also signed top 4 defenseman 85 overall Luis Giguère to replace Ruslan Nazarov. The 2038-39 season recap. After the retirement of long-term captain Mikhail Alblin, the the Canucks were more than happy to promote Vince Mikulski to the next captain. They also promoted George Enders and Corey Raffel as the assistants. The Canucks cruised at the start of the season at December 1st, going 17-5-1. During that month of December, Chad Olson puts up 3 straight shutouts in the 3-game span. At the trade deadline, the Canucks are still playing very good hockey as they are 43-17-2. By the end of the season, the Canucks muster up another 17 wins to finish with 60 wins, 19 losses, and 3 overtime/shootout losses. The point leader, assist leader, and goal leader this year was none other than the captain Vince Mikulski, who put up 26 goals, 53 assists for 79 points, a career best for the defenseman. The Canucks obviously won the President's Trophy with 123 points that year, and only allowing 2.05 goals against per game. The home record was 31-8-2, while on the road, the Canucks were 29-11-1. Round 1 versus Colorado came around, and the Canucks still stormed through the playoffs, finishing the first round off in a 5-game series to head to round 2, where they'd meet up with the Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim was another easy opponent for the Canucks, as they had managed to beat them in 6 games and advance to the conference finals another time. This time they had to play the Dallas Stars, who they played in the previous year's conference finals. This time they actually had an easier time around, as they beat them in 5 games instead of last year's 6 games. Game 3, they were actually down 4-1 in the third period and managed to come back and win the game in overtime by a score of 5-4. Into the Stanley Cup Finals for the second straight year for the defending Stanley Cup champion Vancouver Canucks. This time they had to take on the Ottawa Senators, who have never been in the finals before in this franchise mode. Former player Yuka Blomdell was with the team. Luckily for the Canucks, though, they managed to sweep the Ottawa Senators and win their second straight Stanley Cup. Chad Olson took home another William Jennings Award and the Conn Smythe this season for the best goaltender during the playoffs, and then he also took home one of his first or second Vezinas. And then the only retirement for the offseason was longtime left winger Corey Raffel, who they acquired from the Sharks. To end off his career, he ended with 1,073 games played, 236 goals, 425 assists for 661 points. He wasn't the greatest second overall pick, but he still had a good season. And the playoffs, he was actually an absolute beast before he retired. He could have easily won the Conn Smythe if it wasn't for Olsen. Former player Michael Dimitra, who was drafted back in the same year that Vince Mikulski was drafted, retires with 41 goals, 59 assists, and 100 points in only 352 NHL games. Another former player, Mikhail Blomstrand, retires with only 11 games played in the NHL, putting up 1 goal, 1 assist. The only move the Canucks made during the offseason was signing RFA 22-year-old center Sami Teravainen, who was an 82 overall in medium elite potential. In order to get him, though, they had to give up their 2041st and a third 2039-40 season recap. Despite losing Corey Raffel and bringing in a youngster in Sami Teravainen, the Canucks storm out of the gate, going 23-10-4 by January 1st. They have a 3-way tie for first with the Anaheim Ducks and the Edmonton Oilers. By the trade deadline, they're still having a good record, going 35-23-5. To end the season, they finished 44-29-9 and make it into the playoffs yet again. The point leader at the end of the season is newcomer Montador, who came over 2 seasons ago, putting up 82 points in 82 games. He also led the team in assists with 64. The goal leader at the end of the season is newcomer Sami Teravainen, who we signed during last year's offseason. He puts up 30 goals, which leads the team. Round number 1 of the playoffs brought on the Edmonton Oilers. The Vancouver Canucks found themselves in a hole down 3-1 and battled back just like they did against San Jose and won the series in 7 games. In Game 3, though, of that round, Sami Teravainen suffered a separated shoulder and he's out till July the 1st, so he's out the remainder of the playoffs in slash season. So the Canucks have to make do without their top winger. I think we had him on the wing. Round 2 saw another series against the Nashville Predators. This time, though, no problems for the Canucks as they took them out in 5 games to go back to the conference finals yet again. The conference finals brought on the Colorado Avalanche, and once again, no problems for the Canucks as they defeated them in 5 games. Back to the Stanley Cup Finals for the 3rd straight season for the Canucks, and they had to take on a new team in the Florida Panthers. This series would be hard fought throughout the first 4 games, but then Florida would win the next one and take a 3-2 series lead. Going back to Vancouver, the Florida Panthers decided enough was enough, and they ended consecutive Stanley Cup champions, and Florida won their first cup since the early 2020s, I think. Unfortunately, more bad news came after the Stanley Cup loss as Vince Mikulski decided to call it a career, retiring with 1,197 games played, 317 goals, 621 assists for 938 points, which actually has him at 11th or so all-time in defenseman points, just behind people like Chris Chelios and Bobby Orr and all those type of things. Well, Bobby Orr might not have had that much points because he retired young, but still, Vince Mikulski was up there in the top 11 in points by the defenseman. He was a beast for us, putting up 70-something points a year, 60-point seasons. He was a great player all around, and that's why we had him as captain for his last 2 seasons in the NHL. Another former player, Leonard Stortini, retires with 247 games played, 24 goals, 40 assists for 64 points. He was a free agent for the remainder of his career. 2040-41 season recap. This is the final season in the Canucks GM mode. Due to Vince Mikulski's retirement last season, the Canucks had to promote their 4th captain during GM Snipe and Score's term. They decided to promote George Enders, who's been there since 2026-27, to the next captain. Behind him, they'd also decided to promote Jeremy Gogol, who they acquired from the Ole Ulivi trade 10 years prior to this. They also promote Montador to the 2nd assistant captain just because of his overall and how he played the previous season, putting up 82 points in 82 games. At January 1st, the Canucks find themselves with an okay record, going 22-15 with no overtime or shootout losses. They still continue to stumble a bit as by February 1st they're 30-20-2 with a record just above 500. To end the season, they finished with a horrible record, going 43-37-2 and just barely squeak into the playoffs by 1 point. The Edmonton Oilers just missed out because of this. Round 1, they had to face a team that they actually hadn't faced, I think, at all in the playoffs before, as they took on the Chicago Blackhawks. Unfortunately, this series was not meant for the Canucks to go far, as they end up losing the series in 7 games and ending the GM mode as a 5-time Stanley Cup champion winning team. To end the season, though, the point leader was Louis Giguère, who had 72 points. The goal leader was youngster Conroy, who led the way with 34 goals in his only 3rd season in the NHL, while Louis Giguère led the way in assists with 60. Goaltender Chad Olsen had an okay season, not the greatest goals against wise, but he played 61 games, going 33-24-1 with a 2.53 goals against average and a .920 save percentage. He also put up 5 shutouts, while backup goaltender Bremberg played 28 games, going 10-13-1 with a bad 3.12 goals against average and a .904 save percentage and no shutouts. Okay guys, so now that we have all these seasons recapped all the way to the end, let's just go over some of the players' career stats up to this point, if they're still playing or if they retired during the last season. I don't know if they did because you can't tell if they retired or not. But So Brian Falk, this guy was a guy that only came into the league with us in 2036-37. He only played 5 seasons, and then he's probably still going to be, like, if there was more years, he would still play, obviously. So during that span, he played 410 games. He had 104 goals, 150 assists for 254 points. This guy actually was a really good beast in the playoffs as well. I don't have his playoff stats, I don't think, but he was a very good player for us. His plus minus was a plus 20, so he wasn't the greatest defensively, but he was a good goal scorer and assist man. And he also put up a lot of penalty minutes, 179 penalty minutes during his 410 games. He also won 2 Stanley Cups during those 5 years in the NHL with us. Next we have Chad Olson, and Chad Olson was dropping off a bit, but he wasn't retiring yet, so I think he would probably have played another couple seasons before retiring, but Chad Olson was the best goaltender in Canucks history. Unfortunately, he beat out Alexis Gravenel on a lot of stuff, so Chad Olson came into the league in the last season that we did for, like, just simming wise, in 2029 and 2030. Obviously, we acquired that first round pick from the Dallas Stars. I don't remember. We traded away Johnny Gaudreau for the first, second, and third, and we brought in Chad Olson. Chad Olson, basically with us, put up 3 Stanley Cup wins back in 2030-31, 2037-38, I think it was, and 2038-39. He also won 5 William M. Jennings trophies. A couple of those were shared with Alexis Gravel, but most of them were by himself, or was by himself. He also won 3 Conn Smythe trophies during those 3 Stanley Cup wins. One of his best ones was, I think, the first one against the Pittsburgh Penguins. He also won 2 Vezina trophies as the top goaltender in the league. And then he's now the all-time shutout leader with 68 shutouts, as he just beats out Alexis Gravel's 65 shutouts. Also for his career numbers, he put up 375 wins, which is also the best in the Canucks franchise. 195 losses and 32 shootout losses in 630 games. His goals against wasn't the greatest, 2.3. It's not that horrible either, but he had a great save percentage in .922. He also put up 68 shutouts, like I was saying. His best season by far was the year where we had 60 wins, I think it was. Back in 38-39, he went 47, 12, and 3 with a 1.89 goals against average and a 940 save percentage. He was an absolute animal in net, and I think he probably would have continued that if we would have been able to continue simulating. Next up, we have Earl Festerani. And Earl Festerani we drafted back in the 2024 draft at 30th overall. He is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, as he won back in 30-31 and 37-38. Unfortunately, after 37-38, he kind of dropped off a lot, and we had to send him down to the minors in Utica, where he played for the rest of it, and he actually didn't retire yet, so he's now like a minor league kind of player. But he actually had a pretty good career, playing 966 games, so just shy of 1,000. He put up 175 goals, 309 assists for 484 points. He also had 262 penalty minutes, and he was a plus 62. But for some reason, this guy was always a minus in the playoffs, it seemed like, so I don't know if that's how we lost him in the Stanley Cup Finals or not, but that's Earl Festerani. Next up, we have Jeremy Gogol, and Jeremy Gogol, like I said, we acquired via the trade in 2031 with the Edmonton Oilers for Olli Juolevi. The only reason we traded Juolevi, like, I would have kept him on the team until he retired, but he was losing morale because, like, I guess I scratched him one game in the playoffs, so he was really pissed off about that, so we traded him away in the first and got Gogol. But Gogol was a 3-time Stanley Cup champion with us, so he was pretty much just as good as Juolevi. But then also he put up, during his 10 years with us, he played 902 games, he put up 112 goals, and he also put up 99 assists for 211 points. This guy was actually a really good defensive player. He was a plus 192 with us over that span. His first season with us a plus 33, and then like he had a season in 38-39, as you can see, where he was a plus 48. This guy wasn't really a minus player, except for in his last season where he was kind of dropping off a bit because of his age. He probably would have retired, I think, at the end of the season if we would have saw the retirements, but I'm not 100% sure. And then also he had 133 penalty minutes, so he doesn't take much penalties either. Next up is George Endress, who was the captain in the final season. Once again, we don't know if he retired or not, but he was dropping off a lot in overall, so I'd assume he would have. He was a third-round pick back in 2022, the same year Vince Mikulski was drafted, at 77th overall. He was a 4-time Stanley Cup champion back in 2000 and I think 25. I think he won the Stanley Cup in 2025-26, and then he also won in 30-31, and then the two more recent ones in 37-38 and 38-39. George was a very good player for us. He played 1,362 games, which is one of the most by any player. He played, I think, more games than Mikhail Alboin did with us. He put up 203 goals, 337 assists for 539 points. Also, he put up 296 penalty minutes and was a plus 61, so he wasn't great defensively either, but at least he finished with a career in plus. Next up, we got Kurt Boyce, who was only in the GM mode from 34-35 to the end of the GM mode. He retired he didn't retire, but he basically had won 2 Stanley Cups with the organization. One season he was really badly injured multiple times in 35-36, as you can see, 38 games played only that year, but he still managed to put up 10 points, which is pretty respectable for an enforcer. He played 528 games during his career so far, 32 goals, 101 assists for 133 points, so he's an enforcer that actually could get points. He didn't have the greatest shot because I actually tested him out in a preseason game, and he wasn't a good shooter, but he was a good passer, and he could actually deke too, which is kind of interesting. He wasn't the greatest defensively as well, as he was only a plus 10 during his career so far. But look at those penalty minutes, 538 penalty minutes in 528 games. His last 2 seasons with us, though, 102 penalty minutes and 105. So this guy was taking a lot of penalties and getting in a lot of fights, but he was a guy that could stand up for any of the youngster players, like, say, Brian Falk. So next up, we have George's brother, Marcus Endress. I like to pretend he's his brother. We drafted him, I don't remember exactly when, but Marcus Endress also had 2 Stanley Cups during his 6 years with us, playing 492 games, putting up 76 goals and 120 assists for 196 points. He was a plus 6 during his span, so he wasn't a good defensive player like most of these guys, minus 7 and minus 12. But he also had 134 penalty minutes, so this guy was kind of a physical player, and he also scored some goals, so that's Marcus Endress. Next up, we have Mikhail Goldobin. This guy was a high AHL top 6 forward that we drafted. I don't remember when either, but I think he was like a late round pick or something, but he actually was a pretty good high AHL top 6 forward. He ended up growing to like an 82, winning 2 Stanley Cups with us as well. As you can see, he started his career in 36-37, where he played 12 games with us as a depth guy, putting up 4 points. Then the next season, he only played 7 games. So, yeah, he only played 7 games, did not put up a single point. And then he played 3 straight seasons with us, where he played 82 games. And yeah, basically during his career, he played 265 total games, 60 goals, 41 assists for 101 points. He was a plus 20. And he also had 48 penalty minutes. Next up, we got Olli Lehtinen, who we acquired from free agency from the San Jose Sharks. He also was a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. He only played with us for 5 years, 5 to 6 years, 5 seasons. 6 seasons actually. So during his time with us, he played 487 games, 68 goals, 116 assists for 193 points. I'm not sure how much he put up with San Jose though, because I didn't see if he even played any games with San Jose or if he was just joining the league when we traded for him. He was also, we didn't trade for him, signed him, I mean. He was a plus 16, so not the greatest defensively, but still at least in the pluses. And then he also had 130 penalty minutes during those 487 games, so he was not one of those guys that take a lot of penalties. Next up, we have Samuel Bitton, and I don't know what happened with Samuel Bitton. I think he remained as a free agent for almost every single year after he left for the Islanders. He played 1 year with the Islanders. I'll get his career numbers with the Islanders eventually, I think. Or maybe not, I won't tell you guys. It's not that interesting, but he had a career year with the Islanders, let's just say. But with us, he was a solid player, good penalty killer, good speed. He was more of a playmaker. During his 955 games, he put up 132 goals, 217 assists for 349 points. As you can see with his last season, we scratched him for quite a bit of the season, as he only played 56 games, putting up 11 points during that span. And he was also a minus 10 too. In his career, he was a plus 86, and he had 158 penalty minutes. Next up, we got Sean Manning, and this guy was a really good beast in the playoffs. I'd have his playoff numbers somewhere else, but I won't read them unless, for some reason, if you guys want to find out his playoff stats, you could just like DM me on Twitter or something, I don't know. But yeah, Sean Manning, he basically played 6 to 7 years with us. Not missing really much games, only missing a lot in that final season where he played 76 games. He also missed actually a bit of the playoffs that year too. But I got a bit more statistics on him because I've liked to follow him, so I followed his power play goals, his shorthanded goals, his shooting percentage as well. So he played 649 games with us, putting up 119 goals, 179 assists for 298 points. And then he was also at plus 30. But as you can see, there's 3 seasons where he was in the minuses, 37, 38. He was actually a minus 19 the year we won the Stanley Cup, I think it was. He also put up 239 penalty minutes, 17 power play goals, 4 shorthanded goals, and he had a career shooting percentage of 9.3 by the end of it, so he wasn't that bad of a shooter. Also 2-time Stanley Cup champion, and like I said, we acquired him from free agency from the Anaheim Ducks. Next up, we have Sergei Kuznetsov, and Sergei Kuznetsov was brought into the organization, I think, in one of the last years of the recordings. I think I remember drafting him in one of those. I don't remember. I think he was the first round pick, but he wasn't the greatest first round pick. He stayed like an 82 his entire career, but he still won 2 Stanley Cups with us, playing 735 games during his career so far, 83 goals, 156 assists for 239 points. He was a plus 47, and he had 233 career penalty minutes. His best season coming in the last season, which was tied actually with 35-36, where he put up 33 points. Next up, we got Tom Conroy, and this guy was a first round pick, I think, as well with us. I don't remember what year I drafted him in, but he was a 2-time Stanley Cup champion in his 3 seasons that he played with us. I think he could have probably been a future captain because he was a very good player with us during his 3 seasons, winning those 2 Stanley Cups, like I said. Basically, so far in his career, he played 231 games, already putting up 74 goals, 46 assists for 120 points. He was a plus 18, and he had 56 penalty minutes. But as you can see, his goal totals have been going up since he started. So his first year with us, 12 goals in 67 games. Then he put up 28 goals in 39-40 in his second year in 82 games. In the final season that we did with him, he put up 34 goals in 82 games, which I think was the best on the team, or one of the best on the team. Yeah, it was the best on the team, I said in the recap thing. Next up, we got Tony Taves, and he actually kind of looks like Jonathan Taves with the sideburns. I don't know what you guys think about that, but he was our 2029 second round pick, 56th overall. I think I would have drafted him on one of the videos if you guys go back to it. He played 736 games with us, only scoring 38 goals, but putting up 185 assists, which is pretty good considering he was a defensive defenseman, for 223 points in his career. He was a plus 36, and then he also had a shit ton of penalty minutes. This guy was a wrecking ball. As a lot of the things where you guys could see me winning Stanley Cups, he put up like 100 penalty minute seasons, and he put up like a shit ton of hits during the playoffs. And yeah, he basically had 1,024 penalty minutes in 736 games. Every single year he had over 100 penalty minutes, except for his first year where he only put up 89. Next, we got Xavier Hunter, and Xavier Hunter we signed in free agency from the Montreal Canadiens. He was originally a 4th round pick in 2026 by Montreal at 101st overall. He was dropping off. I think he would have probably retired maybe this season or the season afterwards, but he had 3 Stanley Cups with us, playing exactly 1,000 games, putting up 177 goals and 143 assists for 320 career points. He also was a plus 116, so a very good defensive player. And then he also put up 369 penalty minutes. And that's basically a recap of all of our players' career stats that I wanted to keep track of. I didn't keep track of everybody. Like, I could have kept track of like Blomdell and all those type of guys, but their stats aren't that interesting in comparison. So yeah, that's basically that. So now we look at where basically our players that played for us, where they rank in Canucks history for points and all that sort of thing. So games played wise, Nolan Patrick now leads the way with the most games by a Canuck with 1,558 games, followed by Bo Horvat with 1,366, and George Endress actually at number 3 with 1,362 games. McAlvin falls to 4th with 1,262, beating out Henrik and Daniel Sedin. Henrik finished his career stats total right now as of like September 5th, or 1,248 games played, and then 6th was Daniel Sedin with 1,225. 7th, Ruslan Nazarov would tie Daniel Sedin with 1,225. Chris Wyman falls to 8th with 1,224. Vince Mikulski at 9th with 1,197, and Trevor Linden at number 10 with 1,140. Now on to goals. The top leader in goals by a Canuck is Ruslan Nazarov with 373 goals, which is 3 more goals than Daniel Sedin, who is in 2nd place. 3rd, Bo Horvat with 364 goals, beats out Marcus Naslund, who had 346, and Trevor Linden, who's in 5th with 318. Vince Mikulski goes to 6th with 317. 7th goes to Mikael Albin with 316. Nolan Patrick at number 8 with 295 goals for. Stan Smile with 262 at number 9. And Pavel Bure with 254 at number 10. Now on to the assists. Nobody could catch up to Henrik Sedin's 783 assists that he currently has, but Nolan Patrick was the closest, finishing at number 2 with 691. McAlvin at 3 with 674. Bo Horvat with 668 at number 4. Vince Mikulski at number 5 with 621. Daniel Sedin stayed in number 6 with 616. Chris Wyman at 7th with 431. Corey Raffle at number 8 with 425. And Timothy Liljegren at number 9 with 418. Beats out Trevor Linden, who had 415 at number 10. Now career point-wise, Horvat is the all-time scoring leader for the Vancouver Canucks with 1,041 in comparison to Henrik Sedin's 1,020. McAlvin falls to 3rd with 990. Daniel Sedin at 4th with 986. Nolan Patrick at 5th with 986 as well. Vince Mikulski at 6th with 938. Marcus Naslund at 7th with 756. Trevor Linden at 8th with 733. 9th is Stan Smile at 673. And Corey Raffle manages to fit on there at number 10 with 661 points. Okay, now onto goaltending numbers. Leader in games played by a goaltender is now Alexis Gravel with 686 games. Chad Olsen probably would have beat it if he would have played more seasons, as he came in 2nd with 630 games played. Then you got Kirk McLean, who's in 3rd with 516, Roberto Longo in 4th with 448, and Richard Brodeur at 5th with 377. For wins, Chad Olsen led with 375, which would have been added to, probably would have reached 400 wins. Alexis Gravel in 2nd with 346 wins. Roberto Longo in 3rd with 252. Kirk McLean in 4th with 211. And Thatcher Demko probably would have been in 5th if he would have had more than 126, which I believe he did. I don't remember exactly his total because I didn't figure out that stuff. Goals against per game, or goals against average, I should say. Corey Schneider still takes first place with 2.2. Olsen second with 2.3. Luongo third with 2.36. Fourth is Dan Cloutier with 2.42. Fifth is Lack with 2.43, and Alexis Gravel would have been in sixth with 2.5. Save percentage wise, Corey Schneider still leading the way with 927 save percentage, while Chad Olsen would be in second with 928. Robert Luongo would have been in third with a 919. Eddie Lack in fourth with a 917. And then Ryan Miller and Alexis Gravel would have been tied for fifth with a 914 save percentage. And then finally, shutouts. Chad Olsen would lead the way with 68 shutouts. Alexis Gravel in second with 65, followed by Luongo with 38, and then McLean with 20 in fourth, and then Demko probably would have been somewhere around there at fifth, but I don't know exactly how much shutouts he picked up. So that is career numbers added to like the actual totals from nowadays. So see who is leading now in all-time stats for the Canucks. Now, a final wrap up on all awards and all that sort of stuff that happened in this franchise mode. So, basically, we won a total of 5 Stanley Cups: 2023-24, the 2024-25, 2030-31, 2037-38, and 2038-39. We also were in the conference finals and lost in the conference finals, lost actually in the Stanley Cup finals 4 times, so we basically were in the finals 9 times during this entire franchise mode. While the conference finals, we lost in the conference finals a total of 5 times, advancing the rest of those times. We were also eliminated in round 2 twice only, once by Arizona and once by the San Jose Sharks. Both those years actually we won the President's Trophy as well. And we were eliminated in round 1 a total of 6 times, including in 2018-19 when we lost to the Flames, 2021-22 when we lost to the Flames, 2027-28 when we lost to the Sharks, 2032-33 when we lost to the Oilers, 2036-37 when we lost to the Flames, and the final season when we lost to the Chicago Blackhawks. Now on to other final stuff. So during our entire years in Vancouver, during our entire time in Vancouver as GM, I racked up a total of 1,182 wins, 713 losses, and 155 extra frame losses. I also won, as like I said, 5 Stanley Cups. We were also the runner-up 4 times. And then we also won the President's Trophy a total of 8 times. Once in 2023-24, once in 24-25, once in 25-26, once in 28-29, once in 29-30, once in 30-31, once in 35-36, and once in 38-39. The other Cup champions we got here, so like I said, we won 5 times. Colorado won twice during this universe. Philadelphia won twice. St. Louis won twice. Florida won twice. Arizona won twice. Nashville won twice. Tampa Bay won twice, actually. Dallas won twice. The Columbus Blue Jackets won once. The Pittsburgh Penguins won once. And the Edmonton Oilers and Washington Capitals won once as well. Now, so for some other awards, so Bo Horvat was a dynamite player. As I said, he won 8 Selke trophies with us. Also, Mikael Alberling winning 1 Conn Smythe, Thatcher Demko winning 1 Conn Smythe, Chad Olsen winning a total of 3 Conn Smythes, Alexis Gravel won 1 Vezina, Chad Olsen won 2 Vezinas. The William M. Jennings went to Alexis Gravel and Chad Olsen 3 times, and then Chad Olsen won it by himself twice as well. Other players in the league, though, that dominated throughout this entire franchise mode, Ryan Merkley with the New York Islanders, and then also actually with the New York Rangers, won a total of 8 Norris trophies during this entire years. Also, Columbus Blue Jackets player who eliminated us in the Stanley Cup Finals, Stephen Clancy, took home a ton of hardware during his entire career. as he won. I didn't count yet, but let's just say he won a lot of Maurice Richards for goals. He won a lot of, what else? Other awards. He won a lot of Lindsay's. He won a lot of, I think he won a Smythe one year, but I'm not 100% sure. He won a Hart a lot of years. Art Ross's. The guy was basically like a Jack Eichel in the franchise mode. So that was that, and I think that's it pretty much. So, anyways, guys, that is going to do it for this entire recap of our franchise mode. If there's anything I missed that you guys would like to know, maybe let me know down below in the comments, and I will definitely let you know what happened with that sort of thing if I know the answer to that. So, anyways, guys, that's going to do it for NHL 17 videos as well. NHL 18 is out officially tomorrow, so I'm going to start making content with that. So, look out for like a franchise mode maybe right away. I did a poll and most people said to do it right away, not even wait for roster updates. So I'll probably do like a video on the roster of the team, and then you guys could suggest like who I should like edit for the team, like what their potentials should actually be if they're wrong or something like that. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for being here with me during the entire franchise mode and NHL 17. It's been a blast so far. Hopefully NHL 18 brings a lot of good stuff as well. And yeah, thanks guys for watching. See you guys next time.
19 minutes, 22 seconds.
They won that face-off. Can they clear it? Nicely into the zone. Good work. Stepped on by. Oh, he had a great chance to shoot there, and he did, but it was answered by the glove. One last risky attempt to get back in this game. You pull the goalie, put an extra man out, and you should win the face-off, or you're in trouble. They battle on up the wing. Net open! What a dream realized for so many of these athletes and all their fans. Your name goes on it, the Stanley Cup. These guys started back in the fall. Their dream was to be at this very moment, and the dream is realized. It is a most noble part of a collision sport, an exhausting series of games. Handshakes replace all the adrenaline from the last hours. The man chosen playoff MVP gets the Conn Smythe Trophy. Boy, is this ever well deserved. It's often said it's the hardest prize to win because it takes 8 weeks. And by tradition, the captain is the first to hold it high.